morning. Friday morning. Um, Sounds like they're doing yard work across the street. I feel like something's amiss. That's normally Tuesdays. I don't know. The whole world's turned upside down. I don't know what day it is. Good morning, Dora. Good morning, Deb. Well, we made it to Friday. That's that's an accomplishment right there, I think. So I think maybe today we're going to talk about um, quiet and stillness, and the value of that for us. So, uh, you know, the world is very noisy. There's a lot of stimulus, generally speaking, right? So, if if you're going about sort of what was a typical day, um, people would be bombarded with music and sound and information all day long, right? You couldn't even go to the gas pump without an ad playing or some music or something going on to distract you, to hold your attention. And when our lives were busier, it was, we maybe never even questioned it. Maybe really it just kind of crept in and then became normal. Um, and that, everyone just kind of accepted that that was how it needed to be. Um, I think this time being at home, now we definitely get to choose how we want it to be. Um, and I know myself, I've really been enjoying it. And I think other people I know have as well. I mean, I've always needed some quiet. I've always been a person that needed time to myself and peace and quiet from time to time. My kids will tell you I never ever played music or anything like that in the car. Um, and they used to ask me why. And I said, well, it's quiet, right? I get to control. When you're in your car, you get to control that environment. You can make it just how you want it. So um, when I see how someone drives in their car, that tells me a lot about what they are doing, what they where their head is at, right? Um, when people have music on and they're looking at their phone and they're listening to the people talking around them and they're doing everything, that you know that that tells me they're really maybe overwhelming themselves with stuff. So when we do that, when we try to pile on um, and have that constant distraction, a lot of times it's avoidance, and we're avoiding what we fear in the silence. Um, a lot of times it's our thoughts. People who have gone through very stressful situations or traumas will often look for that distracting noise to try to focus on something besides what's going on in their head. Um, And in that way, it can be, it's not really therapeutic used that way, but um, it's helpful if it distracts you from the trauma. But maybe better would be to work through that, um, to get some help if you need, and trying to not fear that quiet. A lot of times we just have kind of a general fear of quiet. You know, we live in a old house, and my kids used to always play music or do things like that when they were going to bed. And because they said, they heard noises, there would be noises, and they weren't sure what the noises were. So, of course, they would think they were, a ghost, or I don't know, something. Really, it was just, their dad and me walking up and down the hallway or something. But um, so, we can use those sounds to, kind of get us out of where we are. Maybe our association with an empty house or a quiet house is bad. We think um, it will, be scary or lonely. So all of those things can kind of pull you out of um, this desire for quiet and stillness. Um, but I would ask you to resist that and give yourself a chance to experience stillness and quiet. Um, there's nothing to fear. If you do have a lot of really negative thoughts that arise, um, just let them pass. Release them just like we would any other thoughts. Redirect to something more positive. Holding an image or a mantra. You can do that, we talked about doing that for meditation, but you can do that anytime. Anytime you have some peace and quiet and you want to maybe just work on focusing your mind a little bit. It doesn't have to take a great deal of effort. It can be just a simple thing, thinking about. I think about the beach sometimes, right? I love the beach. Um, I don't know. I don't even go in the water that much, but I just love being there. I love the sea, and I just the salt air, and just something about it is very appealing to me. So that that image, or those sensations that I experience are something that I focus on when um, if I'm trying to get myself in a positive sort of space. Um, and I can think about that anytime. I can be washing the dishes, but I'm thinking about the beach. I'm remembering different things about the beach. Thinking about the sand or the sea. You know, whatever works for you. But it's in this quiet time that we get a chance to kind of explore these things, to go to some of these places. Um, if we are fearful of that, then we're never going to go there. We're going to, keep ourselves surrounded by, the chaos, just to keep us, you know, I guess too busy, right? Too busy to think, too busy processing, and it's exhausting, right? I mean, you've experienced that, I'm sure, where you spend an entire day out, or or at home with people, talking to them, interacting with them, listening to music, watching this, doing that, and by the end of the day, even if you haven't done much physical work at all, you're just overwhelmed, and even then sometimes very hard to sleep because you're so overstimulated. um, we talk about that a lot with when they talk about what they call sleep hygiene, right? So hygiene, we talk about that as just a physical, like, cleanliness thing, but the idea of hygiene is really just um, an order to things, right? So getting your sleep in order will help you um, to function really, and to kind of be reliable in your sleep. So they talk about no screen time, right? Cut that down like a couple of hours before you want to go to bed. So no playing on your phone, no computers, no watching TV. Um, or, if you do, give yourself a little time to unwind before you try to go to bed. Um, do something peaceful, read a book. Which, I mean, it's funny because reading a book, right, you're getting information and everything, but it's not the same thing. Um, it's not, you're doing it at your own pace. I think that's the difference, right? You're reading as fast as you want to read. You get to choose how much you read. It when you've had enough, you can set it down. There's no fear of missing anything with a book because you put it down, you pick it right back up. There is, when you're talking about visual media and audio media too, you have no control over it. It just comes to you, and if you are trying to pay attention, you may feel that you can't stop it. Maybe you can because you have pause, but still, there's an urgency to it that reading does not uh, fire up in the body. So um, it's more peaceful, more relaxing. Um, so I would recommend trying to get that stillness. If at no other time in the day before bed is such an important time, because if you can't get sleep, if you can't really feel rested from your sleep, you're going to have a really hard time the next day, and the cycle continues, right? Um, a lot of times, people who have sleep issues, um, they think there's something wrong with them. They think they're, having some kind of a physical problem. In reality, it's just a management of stimulation problem. Right? It's too much at the wrong times of the day. Um, so you can do this. People sometimes go on a fast, like video, audio, video fast, where they stop. They stop watching TV. They stop listening to music. Um, they just cut it all off for a little bit. And I think there is some value to that. I was reading about a study they did about how camping affects your body, and how just a few days of camping will completely change how your body functions in terms of like this sort of circadian clock they talk about, where your body is getting up at a certain time, ready to go to sleep at a certain time. So it's a combination of, reducing like the screen time and um, the noise, and then also the artificial light, right? So, I mean, obviously, I guess if you camped in a camper that had all the stuff that you had at home, it would be different. But I think they mean like being in a tent where you're going to bed when it gets dark and you're getting up when the sun rises. Um, so people don't generally live like that anymore, right? So I wouldn't expect you to go back to that forever, but um, it's very valuable to see how our body functions all by itself when we aren't trying to put a lot of stuff on top of it. Um, so if you feel like you maybe are a little overloaded by this stuff, give yourself, a fast. See how you do with a few days of skipping it. Um, try reducing your the artificial light. Right? There are different things you can do. Different types of light you can get. I've read about different types of light bulbs that are supposed to be less disruptive to the sleep cycle. Of course, trying to get your bedroom really, really, really dark. is really helpful. Putting up curtains, um, getting rid of, you know, your phone or light, if you've got light from a clock or something, all of those things can, and everyone, again, everybody's different with this, right? So some people are very sensitive to it, some people not so much. It may not really affect you that much to have that, but it might, and you may not know it unless you give it a try. So I would, these are all simple things you can do um, to see if that improves things, if that helps you with your sleep, with feeling rested at the in the morning. Um, so stillness, right? When I think about, um, we see a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff online about all these different things, and people talk about how, well, you know, the cavemen did this and the cavemen did that, and they ate this, and you should eat this because cavemen didn't eat processed foods; they had plant foods. And I'm like, yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? We evolved for millions of years, and then really just like in the last 100 years, things have changed so much with people and how we live. Um, Even the last 50 years, you might say, has changed so much. So that's true, right? So, then let's take that one step further. If that's true for food, it's also got to be true for other things. So our life, the way we live our life, um, it is not compatible with, I think, healthy living for the most part. Um, the things that we expect of people, the hours, the 24/7 nature of how things go. Um, I don't think we're designed for that. I don't think we're meant to be doing that. I think we do it at our peril. I think it's damaging to our long-term health and mental health, physical and mental. Um, and I think the more we can do to kind of get back to a more natural way of living, sleeping, working, the better. So if you have that opportunity, give it a try. See if it changes things for you. Um, Now, I mean, in Ayurveda, they want you to go to bed at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock, like when it gets dark, right? And then you would be getting up really early, maybe before it gets light, just as it begins to get light. So think about animals. What do animals do? Now there are some nocturnal animals, right? But I don't think we're a nocturnal animal for most of us. Although I think my kids would argue against that. I believe they are nocturnal animals for sure. Um, so it's something to think about. It's something to give a try. It's hard, and then in that sense, we're going against what everybody else is doing, and that is difficult. You don't want to be unable to interact with people because you got to go to bed at 7 o'clock or something, 8 o'clock. I don't know. But find what works for you. Find a balance. Right? You may be surprised at how much improved you feel by changing a couple of hours in your sleep time, one way or the other. Um, and then working on getting a nice stillness, quiet, dark place for that to happen. All right, so stillness. See what see if you already have that in your life, then you know the value of it, and just keep going with it. If you really don't, find somewhere you can bring it into your life and see what that does for you. Um, it's pretty great. It's it's a good opportunity. So just as yoga, right? We're taking this time for yoga to move and to kind of talk about what's going on with the body. Um, that stillness is a way to sort of put that into practice, right? Doing some meditation or some focus work with the mind. Um, it's uh, it's very energizing. You'll find yourself very um, you won't feel depleted the way you do with things like watching a lot of TV and stuff like that. If you've ever, and I do it too, right? This whole Netflix binging, and it's so tempting. You just want to keep watching a show, just keep watching, just one more episode, right? But if you've ever done that, and I have, when it's been kind of a lousy day and you don't really have anything planned, and you're just like, oh, watch some TV, keep watching, hours go by, and you realize, oh, I'm so tired. I haven't done anything today, but I'm exhausted, right? So it takes a lot out of you being um, so like inactive, right? But yet, you feel exhausted because you're using um, you're using your mind, but it's not even in a productive way, right? It's just kind of it's sort of fun, but after a while, it's not even really fun anymore. It's just kind of a thing that you're doing. Um, so be aware, be aware of how you spend your time, and give yourself some stillness and some asana. So sitting up tall, shoulders relaxed. Deep breath, and then just rest the chin down toward the chest. Moving back up, lift the chin, head drops back. Head back to center, take a breath in, and lower. Back to center and moving left. Back up to center. Take a breath. Lean forward. And then moving around. One way and then the other. Back up to your seat, arms wide. Deep breath in, and then on the exhale, hands together. Inhale, arms come wide. Exhale, hands together. And once more. Inhale, exhale. Interlace the fingers, lift the hands, gaze up. And then bring the arms down by your side. Inhale, lift. And lower. Lift. And lower. Once more. Lifting up. Right hand comes down. Reach across. Switch sides. And back up. Goalpost arms. Take a breath. And then moving to the right. We're just turning the shoulders. Back to center. Take a breath. Turning to the left on the exhale. And back to center. Let's bring the arms behind you. Interlace the fingers. Squeeze the shoulders back. So we're kind of resting the hands on the mat, gazing up. And then folding forward. And back up. Tabletop. Sitting back on the heels. Child's pose. Moving back up to tabletop, then downward dog. And breathe. Step the feet up. Be here in a fold. Take a few breaths. And rise up slowly. Standing tall in your mountain. Breath in and out. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, stepping back with the right. Set your knee down, arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Stepping back, downward dog. Inhale, we're coming forward to high plank, and then lower down. Inhale, lift head and chest. Lower. Inhale, lift head and chest. And lower. Once more. Lifting up head and chest. And then lower down. We're going to move up. Tabletop to downward dog. Take one more breath. Then we're stepping the right foot up. Drop the knee on the left, arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Step the back foot up and fold. Inhale, lift to a flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift high. Back to mountain. Deep breath in and out. Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, stepping back with the left. Drop the knee, arms overhead. Hands to the mat, moving back. Downward dog. Inhale, forward high plank. And then lower down. On an inhale, lift head and chest. Then lower. Lift head and chest. And lower. Last one, lifting head and chest, or lifting up more for upward dog. Moving back into downward dog. Take one more breath. Then left foot steps up. Drop the right knee, arms overhead. And hands to the mat, step the back foot up, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Lifting high on the inhale. We're back to mountain. Take a breath. Let's step out so that you're facing the side of the mat. Hands at the waist or hips. Take a deep breath. And then we're leaning forward here. So, you can have wide legs, but you don't have to. To some extent, how wide the legs are, you'll be down lower, right? You'll be able to reach down lower, but only to some extent. So don't really go so wide trying to get lower. You want to work, again, within that available flexibility, right? So if you are so wide that you feel, unsafe or that it's just too much, come back in a little bit. It's better to, be feeling more stable, and maybe not fold as much. That's fine. So you could be here. You may have hands on the knees or the thighs. You might be anywhere along here. And just keep breathing. Weight is in the front part of the body. So the heels feel a little lighter than the front part of the feet. And then let's bring hands to center. So you might have them on a block, or you could have them just on the mat. Up to you. And then right hand is going to come directly in center. Left hand at your hip. Press down with that right hand. Turn the shoulders. Left arm maybe lifts. Back to center. Switch. And then back to center. Take a breath. Hands to the waist again. Engage the strength in the legs to help lift you up. Take a breath. If you feel all lightheaded, hands up overhead. And then let's walk the feet in a little bit. And we're going to set up for a fold. We've got right leg out in front, left leg behind. Interlace the fingers. Draw the shoulders back. Deep breath. And then fold forward. Hands can stay at the waist, or if you've got the shoulders engaged, you want to lift them up, you can. That's up to you. Pressing down with the right foot, rising up. Take a breath. Back foot steps up. Arms overhead. Back to mountain. Take a breath. And let's just switch. So this time left foot is out, right foot behind. Interlace the fingers again. Deep breath. Folding forward. Breathe. Rising up, back foot steps to the front, arms overhead, back to mountain. Take a breath. And let's work on a little balance. Maybe tree, so standing on the left, got that right foot coming in, kickstand, further up the leg, whatever you want. Steady. Everything at center with that right knee opened up to the side. Finding your steadiness. Maybe some extension if you feel like it, but see what you're doing, right? If this is kind of a natural extension, then that's great. If you're struggling to hold on, then bring everything back to center with the arms. And then set your foot down and we're going to switch. So the left leg is up, knee is rotated out to the side, hands to center, getting that steadiness. Maybe extension if you feel good about it. But not every day is going to be a very steady day. Some days you're going to feel a little unsteady, and that's okay. And then set the foot down, bicycle legs. And then for mountain, we're just going to bring hands to the waist. And we're going to do that kind of pendulum thing that we do sometimes, the legs. So standing with hands at the waist, we're going to lift the right foot. So, foot is kind of flexed. And we're just lifting it up about halfway. And then we're going to bring it through the center. You may touch down here just to kind of get your balance. And then we are lifting it through the back. And then set it down. Let's do again. Lift. And then reaching back. Set it down. And let's switch sides. Inhale, we're lifting. Left leg. And then bringing it through. Reaching back. Back to center. Take a breath. Lifting the left. And bringing it back. And then set it down. Bicycle legs. Keeps moving. We're back up top of the mat, arms overhead. Deep breath. Let's lean back a little. And then fold forward. Inhale, lifting to flat back. Exhale, step back. Downward dog. Forward to high plank. And then lower down. Head turns right. Arms by your side. Head to center. We're going to lift up head and chest, arms and legs. Lower down. Head turns left. Bring the head back to center. arms out in front. We're going to bring one forearm over the other. And then we're going to rest the head down on top of the arms. And we're going to start lifting head and chest and the arms together all as one unit. And then lift the legs. And lower down. Let's keep head to the center and just rest the chin or the forehead down. Bring the legs a little wider. Take a few breaths. And then we're going to just roll over onto your back from here. However you want to get there is good. And just take a few breaths, letting everything settle down. And then we're going to bend the right knee and hug it into the chest. Let's bring the hands behind the thigh instead of on the shin. And if you would like to, you can work to kind of extend the leg. See how that feels. And bend the knee back down, and we're going to switch sides. Same thing, just hugging it in for a few breaths. And maybe extend. So, your leg probably won't extend all the way. That's fine. And then bend the knee again. Extend both legs long. Relax. Take a few breaths. And then bending the knees. We're going to bring the right ankle on top of the left knee. Just like you're crossing your legs. And then we're going to start lowering the left knee out to the side. And that right foot is going to go along. Breathe. Coming back up to center. Switch. So the left leg is on top, and then we're lowering down to the right. Back up. Both both feet to the mat. Knees are still bent. Walk the heels in, close to the body. Hands by your side, ready for bridge. Press down, hands and feet. We're lifting up. And breathe. Lowering down. Soles of the feet together. Knees apart. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. And then we're going to move into Shavasana. So you can extend the legs. You could extend the legs straight up and lower them down. However you want to get there. We're just going to end up in a comfortable place on the mat. Feeling relaxed and steady. Focusing on something, right, to keep you relaxed and focused. So holding that image or those words in your mind. or the breath. The breath is a great focus. Right? The breath, it keeps us here in the present. We can't really get lost in thought when you're focusing on the inhales and the exhales. But you're also doing some deep breathing. So it's kind of uh, a double benefit, right? So it is in the stillness that we can hear what is most essential. That small, quiet voice, right? That is spirit. Some people don't really experience it as a voice, it's more of a feeling or sometimes even images. Some people get images, right? That's um, the way that they communicate within. So there's no right or wrong way to do that. We just have to figure out which one or combination works best for us. That voice of spirit is quiet. It isn't demanding and shrill like the mind or the ego. Um, so it's easily drowned out by a lot of noise and a lot of activity. If we want to be able to hear that direction, those suggestions that help that we will be given, we need to find some quiet, some stillness. So, moving a bit now, fingers and toes, hands and feet, maybe stretching a bit if you feel like that's what you want to do, and then make your way up to a seat. And we'll bring hands together, deep breath in and out. Thank you for taking some time this morning for yoga. and for sharing it with me here. I hope you have a really good Friday. And if I don't see you tomorrow, a great weekend. Namaste. Thank you. Um, I just realized as we were doing Shavasana that I didn't tell you about the silent retreat that I did. Or maybe I have told you about it. I don't know. Anyway, it was just a day. It was just a day long retreat, so it wasn't a whole big thing. Um, it was. I really loved it. I didn't. I was a little apprehensive. I wasn't sure, how I would feel about it. Um, but what I think the biggest takeaway that I had from it was how much of our interaction with other people is kind of forced. That um, so we were able to sit. We had spent a whole day. We were doing meditation and walking, and there was a lecture, a couple lectures, and we had a meal, and it was basically an entire day without speaking. And I felt that you could just sit next to someone. You had your plate of food. You could sit next to them and eat your food, and there was no pressure to speak to them, to make a conversation about the food or about whatever, which I think is very common in our daily society. We feel like it's rude or strange somehow not to interact with other people. But it's actually very relaxing to know that you don't have to know that that obligation isn't expected. Um, you can just do your own thing. And it made me realize that, you can do that anytime. You aren't obligated to speak to everyone you see or comment on everything that comes down the line. Holding your silence, holding your peace is perfectly acceptable. Um, so silent retreats are really interesting, and I would highly recommend them to anyone who is interested in that at all. There are daily ones, there are weekend ones. There's a group that does the biggest one I've heard of is a 10-day intensive that's done in places all over the country. In fact, there's a center up in Claymont where they do it. That's pretty hardcore, and it's pretty. I haven't done that. I don't know. I'm not ready to give up 10 days of my life to that yet, but I'm interested in it. I'm interested in the what that is. To be so silent and have just that stillness for so long. Um, Interesting. And I also just read a story about a guy. I'm always telling you about things that I read. I don't know. I'm reading a lot of stuff. A guy who bought a ghost town in Northern California somewhere. And during the pandemic, before the pandemic, he had moved there briefly, he thought, to work on it. It turned out he was stuck there because he got snowed in, and there was all kinds of stuff that happened, and basically he was stuck there for like 3 months all by himself. Um, and very interesting story, very interesting about what that is, to be so isolated for such a long period of time. Um, so he was basically on a silent retreat for 3 months, unwillingly. Yeah, that's a curious thing, and I think people are experiencing more of that now when they're at home more and not necessarily interacting with people. Um, and people speak a lot about the detrimental things about that it can be socially difficult. People, um, but I would like to speak about the positive things about that, right? So, you can always reach out to someone if you want to. You could make a phone call. You could send an email. You could get on, Skype and do a video call. there are ways to connect. You could wave to your neighbor. You could um, go out and drive around and see people or wave at them, or I don't know. There are ways to interact in safely. So we aren't really isolated, but we could enjoy that, right? We could enjoy that instead of fighting against it, right? So I noticed at the silent retreat, the first time I sat down to eat with someone, I had this. I felt like I had to say something. I was struggling. I felt like, oh my gosh, this is what am I doing? This is so weird. But by the second time, I was like, oh, no, this is fine. This is great. So enjoy that. Enjoy the um, not having any pressure to interact on a very, superficial level. Just making small talk or whatever. We don't have to do that right now. So that's great. Um, your interactions can be very intentional. You can really seek out to speak to someone when you want to. It isn't just a constant interaction anytime, that you can't even stop, right? Um, I think about, people working in like a supermarket or something where they have a just constant array of people coming and greeting them and expecting them to smile and interact and be positive. And that's got to be exhausting. It's got to really be difficult to maintain that in a day. So taking a break from that kind of thing can really help. All right. So we're really running over now. I'm going to go. I hope you guys have a good day. And I will be back tomorrow because it's Saturday. So, all right. Have a good day.